Number 8. The viral New York City subway brawl. In November of 2014, a group of strap hangers on a New York City subway train were involved in a physical altercation that resulted in 3 of them facing criminal charges. The brawl and the argument that preceded it were recorded on a bystander's cell phone. In the video, a group of women could be seen taunting a former baseball player and club bouncer named Jorge Pena. Their jeers were reportedly aimed at the man's red, white, and black jacket, which was emblazoned with a logo associated with the American rapper known as 8Ball. After the women had been mocking Pena for roughly a minute, the situation abruptly escalated when one of them, later identified as Shanique Campbell, hit the man with her purse. A moment later, 21-year-old Danae Howard struck him with her stiletto boot, to which Pena responded by knocking her to the ground. An all-out brawl then erupted in the middle of the train car while the passenger recording the fight could be heard laughing excitedly. When the video was uploaded to YouTube, it was viewed more than 10 million times. In the incident's aftermath, Howard was charged with felony assault, although it was reported that the charge would be downgraded to a misdemeanor offense if she completed a year of counseling and performed 3 days of community service. Campbell was charged with misdemeanor assault and disorderly conduct. Pena was initially charged as well, but investigators ultimately concluded that he'd acted in self-defense and his charges were later dismissed. Number 7. Fiston Ngoy. 35-year-old Fiston Ngoy boarded a metro train near Upper Darby, Pennsylvania shortly after 9 p.m. on October the 13th of 2021. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Congolese immigrant then sat down next to a female passenger. It would emerge in a subsequent investigation that he had no prior relationship with her, as was captured by surveillance cameras. Ngoy proceeded to force himself onto the woman, who responded by pushing him away. Investigators later detailed how the suspect continued to make unwanted advances towards the female passenger for approximately 30 minutes. Local police also revealed a rather unnerving aspect that none of the witnesses at the scene attempted to intervene on the victim's behalf. As many as 10 bystanders instead chose to film the assault with their cell phones, as the helpless woman desperately tried to ward off Ngoy's violation of her personal space. At approximately 9:52 p.m., the man attempted to forcefully remove the victim's clothing, prompting an off-duty transit worker to finally call 911. Ngoy was taken into custody while the woman he'd assaulted was transported to a nearby hospital. In his subsequent interviews with the police, the suspect insisted that he knew the female victim and that she consented to his advances. It was reported that Ngoy had been living in the United States on an expired visa for the better part of 6 years prior to the incident in question. Court records indicated that he'd been arrested on several occasions dating back to 2015. Ngoy was ultimately charged with the assault and was scheduled to be arraigned in county court in early 2022. Number 6. Anna Lushkinskaya. Russian lawyer Anna Lushkinskaya was arrested following an altercation on a New York City subway that occurred in December of 2018. Other passengers on board the Brooklyn D train recorded the incident, during which Lushkinskaya physically and verbally assaulted a woman named as Michelle Tung. It wasn't made clear what had initially triggered Lushkinskaya's hostile behavior, but witnesses' cell phone footage revealed that the lawyer had struck Tung with an umbrella as she shouted racial slurs at her. Even though it initially appeared as if the victim had attempted to simply ignore her attacker, Lushkinskaya proceeded to kick her, prompting other passengers to intervene. 31-year-old Juan Ayala eventually pulled Lushkinskaya away from Tung, and the assailant then hurled racially charged insults at him as well. The altercation was punctuated by Lushkinskaya spitting on the floor of the train and making an obscene gesture in Tung's direction. Ayala carried out a citizen's arrest of the woman and detained her at the 36th Street subway station until the arrival of law enforcement. Lushkinskaya would later claim that she'd been acting in self-defense during the incident, the footage of which went viral, but she was ultimately sentenced to 2 years of probation and 1 day in an anger management class after reaching a plea deal with prosecutors. Number 5. Zadie O'Connell. In December of 2019, Zadie O'Connell, aged 24, was taken into police custody following an incident on an English train en route to Essex. British Transport Police gathered from witnesses that the intoxicated young woman had been belligerent and violent towards other commuters throughout the train ride, although it wasn't reported what had prompted her outburst. A male bystander, who was later identified as 49-year-old John Mason, pulled out his cell phone and began to film O'Connell's antics. The footage he recorded showed that the woman had been shouting at and striking several other passengers as they attempted to calm her down. At one point, Mason had suggested that O'Connell exit the train at one of its upcoming scheduled stops, to which she responded by hitting him in the face. During the video, the young woman could also be seen straddling an unnamed male passenger and inviting onlookers to fight her. A security official eventually arrived at the scene, but as he escorted O'Connell off the train car, she proceeded to grab his crotch. The woman then noticed that Mason had been filming her and approached him. She snatched the cell phone out of his hands, at which point the video ended. O'Connell was later arrested in Tilbury and charged with multiple counts of assault. Number 4. The death of Roland Houston. In the early morning hours of January the 1st of 2022, a group of nearly a dozen teenagers accosted a 38-year-old man at the Fordham Road subway station in the Bronx borough of New York City. Subsequent reports indicated that the victim, who was allegedly intoxicated at the time, had gotten into a contentious argument with the youths. The dispute escalated when several of them began punching and kicking the man repeatedly. It was reported by eyewitnesses that at least one of the teens had also threatened the victim with a knife. The altercation concluded with the drunken man falling onto the tracks as a D train was approaching the station. A Good Samaritan, identified as 36-year-old Ronald Houston, quickly rushed to the victim's aid and attempted to get the train operator to stop. Houston managed to help the fallen man avoid a collision with the oncoming train, but in the process of doing so, was fatally struck by the freight car. The victim of the beating, who was transported to St. Barnabas Hospital following the arrival of first responders, ultimately came away with only a broken arm. In the wake of the incident, NYPD arrested 2 teenagers who faced charges of murder, robbery, and gang assault in connection to their attack of the 38-year-old man and Houston's subsequent death. Number 3. The deadly Tucson drug bust. In October of 2021, a regional task force of DEA agents performed an inspection of the baggage on board an Amtrak train in Tucson, Arizona. Federal officials had set the investigation into motion after tips from the Railroad Corporation itself suggested the possible presence of drugs, weapons, and illegally obtained money in possession of one or more of the train's passengers. The DEA group supervisor who'd been dispatched to the scene was 51-year-old Michael Garbo, a man referred to as a revered member of the federal agency. At about 8 a.m. on October the 4th, Garbo, a second DEA agent, and a plainclothes Tucson police officer began their inspection of the train and its passengers. According to a federal criminal complaint, the investigators discovered 2 large bags of marijuana in one of the passengers' backpacks. The agents then began questioning 2 men regarding the substances, one of whom was named Devontae Mathis. The other suspect, identified only by the initials DT, subsequently opened fire on the law enforcement officers. Garbo was mortally wounded in the ensuing shootout, while the other DEA agent had to be rushed to the hospital. After additional officers had responded to the scene, DT, who reportedly barricaded himself inside of a bathroom, was eventually gunned down by the officers dispatched as reinforcements. Mathis was taken into custody on drug charges. It was reported that in May of 2021, he'd been arrested in Rockwall County, Texas, for a similar offense. The slain DEA agent was honored by his family members and colleagues during a funeral ceremony conducted 4 days after the incident. Today's topic was requested by Godzilla Kotum and Alec Daniel 767. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. The Intercity Express knife attack. At approximately 9 a.m. on November the 6th of 2021, state police in Bavaria, Germany, received a call about an alleged knife attack on board a high-speed Intercity Express train. It was reported that 2 deployment trains of Bavarian police had been in the area at the time of the attack, and they were therefore able to arrive at the scene in a timely manner. It was there that they discovered 3 victims had been left with critical stab wounds, while several others had sustained minor injuries. The 27-year-old Syrian suspect, whose full identity wasn't released, as per German law, was holding a bloodied knife when officers stormed the car. He was arrested without further incident at Seubersdorf station, where the train had been brought to a halt. Roughly 300 passengers were removed from the train and brought to a nearby restaurant for refreshments, while the crime scene was investigated by the authorities. The unidentified attacker reportedly underwent a psychiatric assessment while in custody. The expert examination determined that he was suffering from psychological problems consistent with paranoid schizophrenia. Prosecutors subsequently claimed that the man would likely not be held criminally responsible for his actions due to his unstable mental state. The day after the deadly incident occurred, a judge ordered that the suspect be admitted to a psychiatric facility while he awaited his trial. Number 1. The Joker train attack. On Halloween night 2021, Japanese authorities responded to reports claiming that an individual armed with a knife had attacked multiple people on board a Keio Express train bound for Shinjuku. The 24-year-old assailant, named as Kyoto Hattori, had reportedly been wearing an outfit that resembled the costume of DC Comics supervillain the Joker as he carried out the attack. According to eyewitnesses, Hattori had begun stabbing several other passengers on the subway at random, and without warning, he then poured a flammable liquid all over the train car before lighting it on fire, which caused a panic among the commuters. A man named Shinsuke Kimura, who'd been riding in an adjacent car at the time of the incident, took out his cell phone and began to record as horrified passengers fled from the car where the suspect had ignited the blaze. Once the train had come to a stop at Kokurio Station in Tokyo, some passengers managed to escape onto the platform by climbing through the train's windows. The police found Hattori casually smoking a cigarette while sitting with his legs crossed in the empty carriage. He was taken into custody without incident. He reportedly later told investigators that his plan had been to kill enough people for prosecutors to seek the death penalty. Fortunately, none of the 17 victims of the attack passed away from their injuries, although a 72-year-old man had been left in critical condition due to the stab wounds he'd sustained. It also emerged that the aspiring mass murderer had thrown hydrochloric acid at other passengers during his rampage. He was ultimately charged with multiple counts of attempted murder. Thanks for watching. Would you rather go on a 5-hour train ride with no available bathrooms? Or sit next to a baby on a red-eye flight? Let us know in the comments section below.